Okay. Okay, so last week you had kind of talked about kind of going back into the desire to lose weight, right?
Right.
And that you noticed that you were starting to eat more.
Yeah, a little more. And then this week I feel like I had a little stress. So.
Like life stress?
Yeah, like my father stress.
So, overall, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Well, I'm having a lot of Easter or Halloween candy around. Wasn't real helpful either, but.
Well, is it really the Halloween candy that's around, or is it your reaction and thought process that's not helpful?
Yeah, it was because of the stress, and then it just happened to be there, which I was doing well with it prior to.
I think this is important to discuss. Is it really the candy, or is it your state of mind?
Right.
Really think about that. What wasn't helpful? Your state of mind or the candy? Which one?
It was me.
Yeah. Do you see how it's so easy to think that it's the candy that's around?
Right.
Because that's bad. Well, first of all, you're not questioning the fact that you're calling it bad. You believe it's bad. What you're doing is bad, and of course we could look at, well, I'm eating more than my body needs. So, is it the candy that's bad, or is it the excessive eating of it that's bad? And then is it really the excessive eating that you're doing, or is it trying to deny certain things that's bad? Like, go into where the badness really is, where this untruth, you could say. Where's the untruth of everything? Or where's the struggle? What are you really dealing with?
Well, I guess because I was upset with my dad. He called and asked if he could borrow money, and it just upsets me because, I mean, you want me to go into the whole thing? Is it better?
Well, you think about it. It's like, so your dad needed money, and so do you not have boundaries, or?
Well, boundaries with my father have always been an issue.
Okay, so we don't even need to go into the history. You can just say, well, it would have been really easy for you to go, I'm sorry, Dad, I don't have the money.
Well, that's what I ended up doing, but it wasn't easy. I felt really guilty saying it, and I guess if I really had to scramble around and pull things together, I could have done it. I just did not want to do it, but I felt really guilty telling him that I didn't have it. I didn't want to say, no, I don't want to help you.
Well, so let's really think about this. Are you really feeling guilty about not helping him? Or is it that it's your fault that he's feeling? Is it because are you blaming yourself for his financial struggles?
No.
Well, that's what, really look at that, because when you say I feel guilty for not helping him, it's because in some way you think that it's your responsibility, that you are putting him in a position to struggle because you are not coming to his rescue, right? So he's a victim. He's going into struggle. He's coming to you as a rescuer, and you are not taking responsibility for it. So the guilt, if you think of it simply in terms of that drama triangle, the guilt would come from not rescuing your own dad.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what it is, because he's helped me when I've been in trouble before. And I have helped him in other situations, but I just feel like it's always just some kind of bullshit scam that he's up to, and he just needs a little bit, and he'll pay me right back. And I do believe he would pay me back. I'm not questioning that, and it's not even about the money. I just don't want to be involved in his bullshit scams anymore.
Okay, so the other thing that I'm hearing is resent.
Yeah, I am resentful. Okay. There's a lot of things I'm resentful about towards my dad.
Okay, so so if you have a boundary, right, is there a reason for you to resent what he's doing? Sounds like the resent comes from previous or past lack of boundaries.
Right.
And so when he comes to you in need of rescuing, you're bringing past resent, to this situation. So if you still feel resentment from past situations where you didn't necessarily have a boundary or didn't honor your boundaries, it's like blaming him for you sucking, right? For you not having boundaries. But now you have a boundary. Now you were able to say, Dad, I can't do this for you right now.
Right.
Does it?
And I did. And I felt better once I did it, but it was that period of deciding what I should do that really was stressing me out.
Well, and feeling being put in the position of rescuer in a situation where it doesn't feel warranted for you, or that it's a boundary you're not willing to cross anymore. Again, going into resent, it's like you became the victim. So he came to you as a victim, and then you became the victim, and he became your persecutor. And now you're not going to rescue him. And at the same time, think of all that codependent drama shit that's going on. And then usually, so the resent typically is victim positionality, right? Because he's wanting you to rescue him in a situation you don't think it's your job to rescue. Even though, and anyway, so you become victim. And usually the victim is always looking for a way to feel compensated for why I'm uncomfortable. Can you see then why you would go to some type of neediness or dependency on maybe food or the candy? I deserve it.
Right.
And then we go into the codependency that you've had with body image and dieting. And so you can see that relationship with dieting really served a purpose, especially if you're using food and candy because you shouldn't be eating it, but you're giving yourself it. You're compensating with it. You compensate yourself. I've earned this food. I deserve to reward myself for being victimized by my dad's, gambling issues with money.
Right.
So the goal here is how do we prevent all this? Well, the key is to stay out of the victim position. The victim position is always how people go in. The only way you enter this type of cycle is to be a victim. So in past, you've gotten involved out of being naive and not really understanding the consequences of what you were doing or how toxic maybe this role as a rescuer is. Being a rescuer can give people a feeling of being wanted, being loved, having value. I have something to give. And in your past, it may have felt like this was a good role for you, but now you're older and wiser enough to see, oh, my dad has issues. Either I willfully give them the money and choose because I'm aware of his issues, not to be resentful of it. Because now I'm aware as an adult, I'm not being taken advantage of. He doesn't think that's what's going on. Does this make any sense what I'm saying to you?
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, it took me a long time to be able to say no to my father, too.
Well, because you struggled with boundaries. Again, and the thing about the rescuer, too, you have to get rid of what you used to get out of it. Again, the rescuer position, not only is it like victim camaraderie, oh, I feel bad for you, oh, I can do this for you. So there's a victim camaraderie in it. So it gives you a sense of co-victimization and like, yes, life sucks. It kind of confirms sucky life positionality. But it also gives you a sense of connection, which is, it's not loving connection. It's always a conditional connection. I give, I help, and that's what makes me feel connected. But eventually the giving and helping can create a source of victimization, because you're not getting the same amount of reward. It doesn't feel as gratifying over time, and it's fatiguing to be around people who are constantly in need of help, right? They're not helping themselves or taking care of themselves. But as you get resentful, this is where the resent comes in. You don't see that you're the one who chose this role at some point. You can project that resent onto your father, or you can resent the fact that you've been playing the role. In either way, is it worthy of resent? Is it really unfair if it was a choice that you've made at some point in your past? It was a choice you made to play that role.
I guess too, my dad was kind of in and out of my life as a kid, so sometimes I guess.
Well, that would make sense then, why you would play this role.
Grasping onto anything that he's willing to throw my way.
Oh my God, so forgivable. Forgive. It's understandable why then. Yeah, you would do what you're doing. And for him to, go on the receiving side of it. To him, it may feel this gives us something in common.
Right.
It feels the same on his side. So him reaching to you for money is actually, and who knows what his thoughts are, but we can assume an assumption that to him, it's a sign that he trusts you. He feels comfortable with you.
Right, in his own creepy way.
Yeah. I mean, we can judge it all we want, but the reality of it is the reality he's in. You just don't have to, and it sounds like you're there, you don't give it credibility anymore. But you're going back maybe to the underlying feelings of abandonment. Maybe that he doesn't want to be with you, which isn't the truth. He just can't, he's trying to survive himself. How is he going to help you survive if his ship is sinking already?
Right.
Yeah,
I guess that's what boils down to, that, like, sometimes I just feel like the only time he ever really needs me is he's in trouble financially, or has some other scheme to make all this money, or,
Yeah, he's trying to survive himself. So, what you're going to need to do is lower the fantasy you have of what a father is, because you're holding him to that.
Right.
And then you go into being a victim of him. So we could say that feeling of resentment that you have really stems from this idea that your life is unfair. Like, your life has been unfair because you didn't have a father that was there for you. But that's the truth. So wouldn't you agree that even having that thought is like denying the truth of it? I'm in denial of the truth of this. I'm going to hold my father to some idea of what I think a father should be for me, and I'm going to resent him because of it.
Because he's not
what I believe he should be. So you're actually denying the truth of his reality, his history, why he is where he's at, what happened in his life, and the thousands of experiences he's had in his life to promote this type of life and survival way of being. And then to hold him to a standard that is nowhere close to the reality of his true life, right? And then to resent him because of it, right?
Yeah.
You're denying the truth, right? You're going into the truth of what he is and where he's at, and whatever it took to get him to be this way. You're denying that and grasping onto the idea of what you wanted and expected. Right? So if we got rid of, or we surrendered, or or eliminated what you imagined to be true, which isn't true at all, the truth of what you thought he should be, that needs to die. That doesn't exist, right? What exists in your father is a boy who is struggling to survive himself independently. Okay, can you see that too? I think the other thing is you're attaching him to you as if he's yours and you're his, and you're kind of combining your identity with him. See him as a separate human being completely from you. And just know whatever it was in his life, it is essentially promoted what he has been and what he is. Okay? Does it make sense then to be resentful of what he's not?
Yeah.
Does that make, are you understanding what I'm saying?
I think so.
Is it hard to take in?
Is it hard for him?
No, is it hard for you to really see this? You can hear it, you understand it, but is it hard for you to actually accept what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that. I guess, which is fine. What would why wouldn't you want to accept what I'm saying? Are you getting something out of that resentment?
Maybe it's the only thing I have.
Well, how do you like it? How's it working for you? There must be something you're getting out of it. Like, you like this role for some reason. I'm a victim. What do you get out of that? Is it blaming him for you? You can always have someone to blame?
Possibly.
No, look at it. Because if you could relieve yourself of this resentment and forgive him and accept him for who he really is, without having some idea of what you think he should be, if you can just allow him to be whoever he is, how he is, which is the truth of what he is, whether you like it or not.
Right, he's going to be that way whether I accept it or not.
So what do you get for allowing him to be that way and forgiving him, giving him the grace of his truth from your fantasy of what he should be? What would you get out of that?
Peace of mind, I guess, not having to worry about it.
And let's just think about how you would relate to him differently. What would change to how you relate your relationship with him? He's not changing.
Right, yeah, he sure isn't. Not after all these years.
Yeah, but the resentment you carry is some weird illusion that you can manipulate him into being better or different, or that's going to change things, right? So he's not negotiable. The way he is the way he is, because you know what? There's a history that would make it sense of it. You can't change his life or history to change who he is and how he was a father to you. You cannot go back in time to his childhood, to his parents and how they were treated to change what is happening, right? Or the culture he was raised in. I mean, just go into the history of that and accept the truth of him permanently, right? How would that change your relationship with him?
Well, I guess it would make it better if I forgive him and just accept it.
Well, tell me how it would feel. Like, what would it feel like? How would you feel about him as a person, as an individual? Would I
feel sorry for him, maybe?
Well, you would have compassion.
That he never got it together, or
that the circumstances and the way he used to perceive things and whatever it is what it is. We can make a judgment about it. He just can't get his shit together. That's judgy McJudger pants. That's like saying he's had the tools and he's choosing not to. Right? Do you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess who am I to say that his life isn't just fine the way it is?
Well, it is just fine the way it is.
For him.
Yes, it is. And because for whatever reason, what he's doing and what he's promoting and what he's working on to him seems beneficial. Who on this planet does stuff that doesn't seem beneficial, even when it comes down to hurting someone else? In the moment, it feels beneficial. I'm getting something out of it. The moment you ate that candy and got yourself sick, you thought it was beneficial. So the moment he wants to gamble on something, in his mind, it's going to win.
It's true.
So, you know, you're treating him as if he is so conscious and aware, and he is choosing to lower his standards because he's a piece of shit. Again, you're holding your fantasy as if it's true and being in complete denial of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the resentment comes in.
Right. Well, I'm good at denying reality.
Well, how's that worked out?
Terrible.
You want to keep on suffering? Because the reality is reality, and you can look at every amount of suffering you've had in your life, and you can say it's because I was denying reality. I was trying to escape reality, denying reality, judging reality, and holding reality to a fiction that doesn't exist. So you constantly live in a state of having to slave to change it, being a victim of it, trying to promote something that doesn't exist, and being a slave to what it takes to promote it, right? So this is very similar to what we did in terms of the technique of body image. What did you have to accept to be free from the enslavement and trap to fixing it and changing it and holding on to it? What did you have to do?
Accept the fact that I could gain weight.
Reality. You had to accept reality, which includes the vulnerability of gaining and never losing. And you had to go into the feelings you didn't want, right? You have to accept the feelings you don't want. You have to experience the emotions you've been avoiding. You have to go into that, right? And what happened when you actually went into and went the direction you've been running away from? What happened?
I guess I saw that it wasn't so bad and that I could get through it.
Yeah, you could handle it. Gave you a sense of ability. And it actually desensitized your need for the fantasy. Right? It's like instantaneous too. The moment you go the direction you don't want to go. So in this case, with how you relate to your body, it's really a relationship issue. You're relating to your dad relative to the fantasy you think he should be. Right? Well, he's not that. So if you hold on to some idea of what you think he should be, you will always suffer in relation to him. Right? So what would happen if you accepted him as he is, with his flaws, with his, immaturity, or whatever it is that he actually is? If you accept that, how would that change how you feel about him?
I could just love him for who he is.
Wouldn't you rather have that?
Yeah. Well, I just learned to love me for who I am.
Well, of course it starts there. Because if you can't go into the radical truth about yourself, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to then do it with others. Right? So we've done it with the body to some degree. You've been able to radically accept the body you're in. Right?
Yeah.
You say that like, no, I'm not.
No, I'm just thinking about, I'm relating it how, the skills I learned about me, I have to apply to other people, I think.
Well, you have to apply it to yourself. You know that if I go into just accepting the truth of whoever I am, whatever I am, as I am, that the loss is the illusions, the fantasies, the grandeur, the narcissism, the self-promotion. Like, you lose the promoted concept of yourself, which isn't even real. It's a fantasy of promotion from some attachment, right? You lose that promotion, but what you gain in return is freedom. Right? To just be real and authentic and truthful, right? You don't have to pretend anymore. Do you recall that feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you not want that feeling anymore?
No. I want that feeling of the peace that comes with it.
Well, not only is there peace, but there's freedom. Don't forget the freedom aspect. So what that means is you're free to suck. You're free to be a piece of shit. Doesn't mean that we intend to be that. But if you are, if that's truly inherent to your existence, that then you can relax and have the peace of just allowing it. It's like being dumb, not being smart enough, not having what it takes. You know, you don't have to be a slave to proving otherwise. Right? Look at yourself from that position of, I've always done the best I could do with what I was aware of. Even if I wasn't aware of much, I was still doing the best I could do with my ignorance.
And it was okay.
Yeah, well, you couldn't have done any better. You were ignorant. You directed all that will and energy to ignorance. And of course, there's a mistake in that ignorance, but you really thought it was the right thing to do. Right? So if that's what you were doing, can't we safely assume that's what your dad's been doing? So maybe the problem you're having here is if you get grace, that means that he also gets grace and you are no longer better than him. You are no longer the narcissist dominating over him. He's a piece of shit. I'm equal to him. Oh shit. That means I'm the same as the person I degrade. That is the narcissism, fear of inferiority. But I'm not superior. No, you're not, actually. You're the same. And so am I. Because we're all pretty much doing the same thing as animals, you know? Doing the best we can with what we're aware of within the awareness that we are given in the moment that we have it. Right? So in his survival mode, can't you have compassion for the fact that he believes in this moment that this is the right thing to do? No different than you gambling with some goddamn diet that's abusive. It's going to end up promoting excessive eating. What's the difference?
Yeah, well, put it that way.
Well, open your mind to what you're doing that you think or have done, that you were blind to, that maybe he believes in this trap and he's willing to work hard for it. Willing to take risk for it. You know, we could look at what he's doing and say, at least he's not in apathy. At least he has enough self-confidence that he's willing to work hard for something and take a high risk. You know, of course, you can see, similar to someone who's willing to latch onto and grasp onto a radical diet, the benefit in that case is that they actually believe and feel capable of what they're doing. So there's a benefit to it. The downside is they may not have the discernment to see that it is going to end in fatigue and exhaustion and relapse, right? So what did it take for you to have that discernment?
You.
Well, and not only that, but think of all the times you had to watch my YouTube videos and then all the work we've done. And, you know, maybe your father is in a different trap and there's nothing there for him to say, I just can't do this anymore. No, he's living in the same all or nothing mentality that you arrived to me with. Again, this resentment you hold with your father is benefiting you even though it's not good for you, right? So you have to be willing to surrender what you get out of it. I'm better than him. I can blame him for when I struggle. You know, I don't know. This is where you'd have to go into what do I get out of it, and what would happen if I surrendered it? What would happen if I didn't have him to blame and if I related to him in a loving way? What would happen?
I guess our relationship would be better. I mean, I always think it's good until he pulls these crappy things, and I feel bad about them.
Or you judge him.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's only good if he meets your fantasy standards.
Exactly. I was going to say, as long as he behaves the way I expect him to, everything's great.
Yeah, is that really love?
Guess not.
No, if you really think about him independent of you. Think about what it would feel like to really, really love someone as they are. Is what he's doing with his money really impacting you? Especially if you have boundaries that you're not willing to.
So it only impacts me when he expects me to be a part of it.
Well, that's because you don't have any boundaries. So you just have to keep your boundaries. So what his response is to that is nothing to do with love. Right?
Right.
So if you really love someone, you care about who he is, right? You don't necessarily, you don't necessarily invade his conscious space to tell him how he should be living his life. That means you're taking control of his karma, which means it's yours.
Right.
Right? Like you are now invading into his life as if his life needs to meet your life. Do you see that? You do see that. Are you just saying that?
No, I see it.
So, is it really your business?
No.
Not if you have boundaries.
What makes it my business? Is it my business?
Say that again?
But if I say no, then I guess it doesn't have to be my business.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As long as you have boundaries, he can do what he wants, and you don't have to be an asshole. You don't have to judge him. It's no different than siblings that I have who are really sucked into religion. I'm not going to judge them. I expect them to live the way I do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing what's right for me. They should do what's right for them, even though what they're doing is not right for me.
Right.
And I could absolutely say, well, it's predictable what's going to happen here and here and here. But what? It's none of my business. I love them. Even if they are isolating themselves from reality. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I judge that? They're doing what they need based on what they're aware of. They should do that. It's none of my business.
But on the other hand, if they just start pestering you, come on, Rob, you need to do this and come back to us. And you're different. You need to be more like
yes.
them.
Yes. And I know they're judging me. Yes.
So then if you say no to them, then that's knowing your own boundaries.
And I'm okay with them judging me and thinking I'm a terrible human. Yes. Because I love them.
Right. But then don't you question if they love me, then they wouldn't try to do
not
things.
at all, because I'm aware that what they are doing is important and safe to them. And because they love me, they want me to be in the same safe place with them. They just don't realize that it's not safe for me.
Right.
So I can give them the grace of their not knowing that.
So even if they're picturing you every single day, come on, Robert, come on, they just won't take no for,
Yes, and being told that I am taking, yes. I mean, everything you're saying is actually vanilla compared to what I've experienced, right? In terms of I'm going to hell. My children aren't going to be going to this family space anymore. It's not even hell. It's like outer darkness. Yes, I get that.
Good. So you just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that for myself. And
No, I don't talk. I'm doing the best with what's right for me. And none of their opinion has any relevance to it. They can hold in their thoughts negative things about me, and it doesn't have any relevance to the truth of what works for me.
And are they angry at you for
No. No, I know my mom, when a lot of this happened with other siblings, she was angry and victimized and did treat them poorly. But you know what? They have to be able to secure themselves, even though other people are judgmental and ignorant, right? And believe otherwise. Even if, and I remember thinking at the time, even if I could be making the biggest mistake of my life, but to continue to be a slave to other people's opinion of what they think is better for me is actually worse. Because I have no free will. I'm not using my own awareness to live. I'm using theirs, which keeps me in this state of insanity. So I would rather be judged and make mistakes, but it be my free will, than to surrender my free will just for someone to approve of me. I don't know if you can hear it, but you're the asshole to your dad. You probably never saw that angle. There's a bunch of angles to see it, but there is one where you are the douchebag. Because you can't just let him be himself.
Right.
You know? So to me, other people's opinion about what's good for me is irrelevant because I'm the only one in my space. Right? So they can think that, a different political position is best for me. They can think that a different haircut is best for me. They can think that a different way of dressing is better for me, but they're projecting what's good for them onto me. And invading into my space as if I am part of their life and have to do what they need, what's right for them to be happy. That's called slavery,
How do you keep from being mad at them for wanting you to be something else all the time?
Oh, because I forgive them. I give them a lot of grace. I'm not a victim. I would rather them think I'm a piece of shit than to become a victim trying to change their opinion. Right? So this has a lot to do with you not taking responsibility for yourself.
Well, and forgiveness has never been my strong point.
Well, you've never really wanted to do that because you're getting something out of the anger and the resentment and being a victim. Yeah. So why would you give that up if you get something out of it? The drama. I like the drama.
What can I really be getting out of it? I mean,
Well, you tell me, because you're getting some out of it. Why would you hold on to such a shitty way of being? There's got to be a payoff.
Well, there has to be, but
I don't know.
I'm not sure what the hell it is. Why I've been doing it.
Well, it gives you a sense of you're better than your dad. Gives you a sense of superiority. Gives you someone to blame when something goes wrong. Keeps you from having to admit that you maybe suck too. It's the pride and arrogance. You're inflating yourself. Having him to compare yourself to is a form of inflation.
Well, I was going to say, if being better than him is the best I can be, that's not really saying much. But I'm judging again, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you heard that. Oh my God, the narcissism today is huge. I don't know if you can hear it. I mean, you're wasting your money with this conversation with me because you don't want anything to do with it. I want to be a victim, Robin.
Stop it. That's funny.
Oh.
It's like my thoughts are so confused inside my head because I don't feel like I want to be the victim, but I guess I hang on to it for some weird reason.
Because it is probably how you coped as a kid. It probably actually helped you work your ass off to prove better than him. You know, think about how your perceptions of your father impacted your decisions. You could say it benefited you. Because he was so, whatever. I mean, did your mother complain about him?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there you go. That could be a lot. It could be a mommy issue.
Well, that's one too. That's another week.
You know, because if you are, you know, if you're put in a position with what's called divorce abuse, where one parent is using you to be either co-victim, if you forgive your father, that means that you're abandoning your mother, you know. Who knows? We don't even have to dissect all of this. All you have to do now, even without knowing, is say, I forgive my father. He is, the reality of it is he's really doing, you know, he's had life experience. That is why he is the way he is. There's no way to change it.
Right. So
to hold him to a life way of experience to promote something better than that is wrong. You're the asshole.
Well, I guess it was easier to believe he was the asshole than to think that I was unlovable.
Well, for sure. But is it really go into the truth of, are you really unlovable? Are you really? And is it really that you're unlovable? Is it really about you? Is it really about you? Everything?
No.
Well, God, the narcissist must feel so insignificant right now. Then it's not about me. Well, wouldn't that be awesome if it had nothing to do with you?
It would be awesome.
Well, why not go there?
I think I choose to do it out of
a child's perspective. It's a child's perspective. You don't have to hold on to that perspective. It's childish and it came from a child's perspective. You need to recontextualize from an adult the truth of your parents. They were probably really immature. But it wasn't really immature because that was probably a normal way of being in that culture they were in. You know? Either way, whatever it is, whether it's immature, inadequate, whatever, both of your parents, under whatever belief systems and patterns and thoughts and history and all of the thousands of experiences that affected the way they think up until that point, they were doing the best they could under the circumstance. Your dad did the best he could under the circumstance. Your mom did the best she could under the circumstance. And how they responded to each other also created the outcome. You know, so you look at them separate from who you are. See them as separate people with childhoods. See your father as a boy under whatever circumstance he was in, trying to survive to support his family, which may have been gambling, you know, thinking, I can get back to it, I can support them. And your mom being like, he's a piece of shit. Whatever the circumstances, do you love them?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go into how you really want to feel about your father. Do you really want to have these judgments and shaming and all of this superiority over your dad? Do you want to feel that way about your father?
No.
How do you want to feel?
I want to accept it.
Yeah, you want to love him, right? So why don't you just love him as he is? He is good enough, because that's really how he is. It's really, you love him.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, with his problems. You accept, really. You just accept him as he is, knowing that however this came about is understandable. Doesn't mean you love the problems he has and how he's responding to things, but you You allow him to have that way of being without you removing love for him because of it. It's kind of like I love people who judge me. My own family members, which they don't anymore because we're over that dumbass shit. But I loved a sibling call me and tell me that I was destroying the family when I got married to my husband, who was not the religion. Just because I married out of the religion, it was like a horrible thing, right? I forgave him when he did it because I just knew he had no clue. He just has no clue what's going on in my life. And if he knew how dark my brain was, he wouldn't be such an asshole. So I just forgave him as it happened. Right?
Yeah.
So I let your dad be him. Let him be uniquely him. Instead of projecting some victim positionality onto him as a persecutor. Do you really think he intended to hurt and persecute you?
No.
I would agree. So if you knew what you know now, would you still hold him to the standards you have as a kid? If you can go back to that child and explain this to that child, how would that child feel differently about her father?
No, it's hard to say because that child.
No, it's not. Just stop. You're trying to defend your bullshit. Just do what I said. See, you do not want to change. Okay. If you don't want to change, how is anything going to improve? You got to wait for him to improve. You got to make sure everybody else is performing so that you don't have to do anything new. Let's try this again. Are you ready?
Okay, let's try it again.
I know, the narcissism. I'm really good with narcissistic personalities. Can you see I just don't have any, I don't let it exist. It's like, you're nah.
Yep, I see.
Bullshit, I won't accept that. Right? Okay, so let's try it again. If you as an adult could go back to that child and explain to that child, you know, your dad, he's got some mental health issues. He's having a hard time just surviving, and he feels super inadequate with himself, and he's overreaching. Don't worry about it. He loves you.
Maybe that's what I needed to hear.
Okay, well, I'm asking you to go do that. Go imagine if you could go back into your childhood and have that explained to you, that you could go in knowing that child and being that child and tell her, your dad loves you so much, or he just has got his own mental health problems that he doesn't know how to be any different than this. He's not going to be reliable this way. He doesn't know how to, right? Imagine how that would impact you and how you related to your father to know that stuff. Just go into what you're aware of today. Imagine having that awareness as a child. How would you relate to your father?
I'd feel sorry for him.
Yeah, and you would connect with him at the level he could connect at. And you would give him all sorts of grace. You wouldn't rely so heavily. Wouldn't you agree? You wouldn't put so much energy into relying on him.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, right? So if you didn't rely on...
I always just felt that I could change it.
Well, that's
if
still...
I'm a good girl, then he'll want to be with me more.
Yeah, that's a huge reliance on him emotionally. Don't you agree? That I can manipulate him. I can change things. So go into what's underneath that is a huge reliance on him emotionally. So if you knew that he's not capable of that, would you still rely on him that much?
No.
So what would happen to all that effort?
It wouldn't be there.
You wouldn't have done it. You would have been like, oh, you know what? What would have happened inside your own sense of ability? Without him.
Yeah, I would have probably been a lot stronger.
Well, yeah, all that energy that you put into, I can prove it, I can do this. would have gone towards authenticity, right? Towards working on yourself versus working on trying to get him to pay attention to you. What would happen if you could go back and tell that daughter the truth of, here's the truth of your dad. He's really not capable of what you're imagining him to be able to do. And he's not capable of that. What you're imagining, he isn't even capable. That little girl would probably go, oh, well, okay. All right. Well, then I'll just do it myself.
Uh-huh.
When he came around, you'd be like, hi. Like an uncle.
Right.
You wouldn't be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
He's neglecting me. You wouldn't go into that position. Because it doesn't make sense if he's not capable of that level.
I guess I wasted a lot of time trying to figure it out.
Well, was it really a waste? Or is it something you needed to do to understand this? Like, you needed to waste a whole lot of time and energy thinking you can change someone to realize, oh, I can't. That, you see where I'm saying the wisdom I'm bringing to you right now when I say the wisdom you have right now, if you could go back and tell yourself, oh, he's not capable, right? It took you wasting all this energy, being a victim, all that shit, right? Thinking it's going to change things to find out, oh, it has nothing to do with me. There's nothing I can do. This has nothing to do with me. Really is a matter of his awareness and his capacity and where he's at. It has nothing to do with me. Zero. It had nothing to do with you. So you doing all the shit you've been doing, how's it worked out?
It hasn't.
Well, and there's your resentment. Because it's not working out. Well, who should you be resenting? Him or you?
Well, yeah, me.
Yeah, because of the illusion you think you can change people. You can change him. He's in his own survival mode. So trying to change his survival mode is fruitless. So maybe you should resent the idea that you've been holding him to a standard that he's not capable of. Resent the standard you're holding him to. Look at the standard you're holding him to. That's the reason why you've been working your ass so hard. Thinking you can change people to be better than they actually are. So which should you be resenting yourself or the standard you're holding yourself and him to?
I mean, that's obvious, but I don't want to resent anything anymore.
So then you accept the truth of who he is. It's like I'm talking to you like you're the little girl. Hey, he's not going to change. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with him and his karma and his life experience up to this point. You can't go back and change the neglect he experienced. You ever thought about that? So
I know there was a lot.
Yeah, so if you're neglected, how do you learn to be a good dad when there is none? You're holding this innocent boy to some godly standard. And you resent him? You should be resenting the standard. Get rid of it. This is the beauty of changing these programs is they can go away instantly. The standard is outrageous. You can't hold people to that standard because that standard only exists for people who had the ideal parenting and the ideal situation and they had all of these experiences to promote their awareness and their stability, right? So you're holding him to that with an unstable, neglectful childhood as if he should know better, when he clearly doesn't and still doesn't. And then you're taking it personal as if it's against me, like he's doing this against you. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, I just wish I had heard that 50 years ago.
Okay, well, you're hearing it now and you still don't want to hear it. So let it soak in. You're getting it now. Holy shit, aren't you lucky you didn't die with this resentment? Or figure it out when I'm dying? Oh shit, I wish I would have loved my dad. Instead of judge him my entire life. Because I felt disconnected from him. I wish he knew how much I just love him. Who he is, how he is, and that we could connect. Oh, well, I'm dead. Maybe the next life. You know? So what are you going to bitch about getting this information now instead of 50 years ago? Yet again.
I guess I just did.
Why can't you say, holy shit, I am so glad I am becoming aware before I have to die to do it? I can release my father from being an indentured servant, some fucked up standard that should never have existed for him in the first place. And in return, you get to feel connect and love with him unconditionally. And you no longer expect him to change. You expect what he is. And so when he calls and asks for money, you can go, oh, Dad, I know that you feel comfortable talking to me about it. I'm sorry, but I don't have the money. I hope you can find it somewhere. And then you say, well, what else is going on in your life when he calls? And you talk to him. You don't get all like...
Might not be mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, seriously? Think of the drama that you just created out of nothing. And then you're eating candy to compensate yourself. Anyways. How do you feel? How's this feel now?
I guess I feel like a lot of stuff's been lifted. It's like an eye-opener, that's for sure.
Maybe you should call your dad and just say, hey, just checking on you.
Yeah, sure, that's a good idea.
I don't know. Face the issue. You don't have the money for him, but you certainly love him and want to talk to him and see what's going on.
It's true.
Anyways, so what would happen? I just was in my head thinking, you need to really sit and think about this. What would happen if you threw away all the standards you've been holding him to that make you feel victimized? And the reason why you feel victimized is because you are expecting him to be something he's not. You know, going back to the child. If that child had a moment of clarity to go, oh, he just isn't capable. He's just, he's functioning at the best he can right here, right now. It has nothing to do with me. You know, if he could tell you his history, right, you could go, oh, well, this makes a ton of sense. It has nothing to do with me. In fact, when it comes to you, he probably holds a bunch of shame and guilt and regret. Would you want him to hold that?
No.
Why?
Well, because I know his circumstance wasn't good and he didn't have a good role model. And
And he did the best he could.
That's right.
And is that good enough for you?
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Simple.
And loving.
Yeah.
Like you can fulfill yourself. That what he can give to you and what he provides for you and what he's available for is, you know what? It's awesome. That's 100% good enough. And you can provide for yourself the rest without feeling pissed off about it.
Right.
Be kind. Be gentle and be gracious. You know, what happens to your relationship with him if that's how you approach it?
It'll make it better.
Yeah, he doesn't have to change. And you don't
Right.
have to be pissed off anymore. It should feel very easy. Like, oh, well, then this is easy. Because he should do what he wants. He's an old dude. I mean, assuming, how old is he?
78.
Shouldn't he be able to do what the fuck he wants?
Yeah.
Why do you have to hold him to some weird fantasy that stems from when he was 20? Anyways. Just saying.
You're right.
Just hold a boundary and just know that he, you know. Holy shit. Our hour's over.
Okay.